So welcome everyone. We now have a quorum. It is great to be here in Cedar Fort, and we thank Mayor Cook for hosting us today, and for all of you for being here. Quorum. In attendance is Senator Jerry Stevenson and myself on the board, Jonathan Friedman, and online we have, who do we have online? Bill and Victoria. We have Victoria and Bill. Okay, so we have Victoria Petro and Bill Wyatt on line with us. Thank you both for being here. The meeting agenda has been provided to the board. Okay, so Abby Osborne will join us a little later. Okay. The agenda has been provided to the board in advance. It's been made to the public online. Among the items, our agenda includes a budget hearing, a proposed business incentive in Cedar City, and the creation of the Pony Express project area here in Cedar Fort and neighboring Fairfield in western Utah County. A period of public comment will begin at approximately 11 a.m., so just under an hour. In order to speak during public comment, please fill out the comment card and hand it to Diana Gardner. She'll raise her. Diana's in the back. Okay. Since the meeting is also a budget hearing, we'll prioritize first those comments related to the budget. For virtual attendees with wishing to speak, we'll invite you to use the raise hand feature in Zoom as we open the comment period. Please wait to enter the queue until instructed. All public comments will be no more than 2 minutes in length because time for public comments is limited. Please understand that we may not get to everyone. As always, we invite you to submit your comments in writing at inlandportauthority.utah.gov. Okay, now we will move forward, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. The next several, let's see, the following items will be presented to the Utah Inland Port Authority Deputy Director, by our Deputy Director and CAO, Ariane Gibson, who is joining us remotely.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Amy C., are you ready to share your screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. The first thing I'll be presenting on is the AIB Loan Committee. We have a loan that was recommended by the loan committee that we wanted to bring to you today. If you'll move to the next slide, Amy. I just wanted to give just a brief summary of what the AIB Loan Committee has the authority over. So the AIB Loan Committee may recommend for the Inland Ports Board to approve infrastructure loans to be undertaken by the borrower from the state of Utah's infrastructure bank. An infrastructure project is narrowly defined related to intermodal facilities, sewer, electricity, roads, and water. And when an infrastructure loan is created, it's set in statute that it should be at a rate not to exceed 0.5% above the bond market interest rate available to the state. These loans are administered and serviced by the Division of Finance, and it is a loan pool held by the state of Utah. If you'll progress to the next slide. The loan I want to talk about today that we're bringing before you is for PCC land, which is the up in our West Weber district. And they're asking for a loan of $5 million for 3 years at an interest rate of 3.28%, paid in full with capitalized interest at the end of the loan period. This project is to bring in infrastructure into the eastmost part of our West Weber district, and it's regional infrastructure that will help expand for the entire project area. It will open up about 300 acres of prime real estate in this area, and it will allow for future housing development to tap into, as well as other developments in the project area. So it's been right sized not just for this particular project, but for the entire region. They are asking, or we have asked them to put up collateral, and they've put up the loan as collateral on the project. There is a appraisal out right now, and the infrastructure loan committee had recommended that we move this to the board for approval, but with a favorable recommendation coming from that appraisal. So you'll see that later in the motion that we are looking at that. This will really bring some great opportunity to the area because it's the eastmost and there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be brought into the area. It will allow for that expansion. It does include, they're asking for 5 million because there is some ARPA federal money that's set to expire. And there has been an agreement with the granting agency that there needed to be a match brought before them. And so this $5 million and coupled with the ARPA money will bring what they need to do for the sewer line into this area. But overall, there will need to be another overall about 20 to 30 million dollars to bring in all the infrastructure. So this is more of a gap bridge loan while the organization is working to get out to other financing mechanisms. They are looking to PCC Land is a partnership between Black Pines and the Gardner Group. And so we've reviewed their financial statements. They're gone through a thorough underwriting process. I've worked with our compliance officer to ensure that, we've looked at this thoroughly and that there's the ability for repayment as well as that collateral as a backstop to ensure that they would be able to take out this loan with their own resources if they needed to. So that's my presentation on this particular infrastructure loan. It was recommended to bring to the board for approval, and upon the board's approval, we would also have to take this to the Executive Appropriations Committee for approval before it can be finalized and the loan agreement can be signed. So with that, are there any questions specific to this loan that the board has?
Questions here online? I don't see any.
Okay,
Ariane, thank you so much.
yes. With that, Amy, do you want to switch over to the budget and we'll do our budget presentation? So here in front of you is the budget for the Utah Inland Port Authority. And we've laid it out here to both to show you in tabular form what the prior year or fiscal year 24's budget is. The next column shows the previously approved budget that was brought to the board last year before fiscal year 25 began. And then we have a column showing the estimated actuals for, where we project to be for the end of the year. And so this budget, we are bringing a proposed revised fiscal year 25 as well as proposed fiscal year 26 budget to you. So that's what each of the columns represent. If you're looking at we'll just start at the top where we have all of our revenues, and I'll just briefly talk through those. Feel free to stop me if you have questions as we go along, or we can do that at the end. But the majority source of our revenues right now is the property tax differential, most of that coming from the Northwest Quadrant, although we did see some money come in from the Spanish Fork area, and we have this year triggered some parcels, so we do anticipate some additional within next year. We do have some sales tax coming in from our project areas, albeit that is minimal compared to what we're collecting in property taxes. We do receive a $3.1 million appropriation. It was the same amount in fiscal year 25 as it was approved for fiscal year 26. We do have, since we collect our property taxes once a year, and then we get some additional funding at other times, we do put our money into the state's public treasures investment fund, and so we do have some investment earnings that you'll see on here. Interest rates have been fairly high, but they are coming down a little bit, and so we have projected that to potentially be lower. From a conservative standpoint, you want to estimate your revenues, lower than maybe where they will be, and your expenses at or at about what they should be, just to make sure that you have coverage there. So we've been more conservative in our revenues than maybe what we may see on the back end. And you can see that if you look at the previously approved budget versus what we've actually seen come in this year. We do anticipate this next year to have a significant amount of our federal grant money coming in. We've hired a couple of new staff that I know Ben's going to introduce here later to work on that Clean Ports program. So we will have more federal grant revenue coming in this next year. And we've also made, I skipped over this, but we have leased out more of the property that we have a lease on out in the Northwest Quadrant. So we will see some additional lease revenue coming in. Down in our operating expenses area, we've added some personnel to make sure that we're, getting things done correctly and accurately. And so we've made some estimates on personnel, travel, what we will need now that we're, have 13, almost 14 project areas, traveling throughout the state and doing some outreach. We are, as was approved, I think it was in our April board meeting, our office lease, we are going to be extending to taking up some additional space on the floor. So we will need a additional budget there for our office lease. And then just other various operating related expenses. The biggest being the federal grants. We'll have the revenue come in, and then we'll have the expense go out for personnel and for some other studies and things related to both the RAISE and the Clean Ports grant that we have. Down in the inland port development activities, this is where we do our allocation of funds spent for the Salt Lake City interlocal agreement. The acquisition of property line, you can see that third column in for $26 million. That is where we purchased the landfill. And that's also where we account for the leases in the Northwest Quadrant. So we don't anticipate having more funding there other than the leases. And so that's why it's going down. If we skip down to the fees and transfers, we have that transfer for Salt Lake Housing for the affordable housing. We have the bond that was issued by the Crossroads Public Infrastructure District that we transfer the money over so that they I think it's about 40% of that Northwest Quadrant differential money to make the debt service payment. This last year, because there has been a balance in there, there's interest being earned, and that requires less money be sent over to the bond. Well, it gets sent over and then it's sent back if it's in excess. And so we were able to utilize that interest to make the interest earnings to make the interest payment on the bonds. And so that's kind of the coverage there, why we have less necessary. And then the tax sharing agreements and incentives that we have partnered with Spanish Fork and some other public infrastructure districts that will be passing through the tax increment for them to finance the infrastructure and incentives as well. So overall, we are anticipating that our revenues will exceed our operating and other expenses. And really the fiscal year 25 budget update, we're not asking for more overall than was previously there. We're actually just kind of more right sizing it to what we've spent this last year across the different line items. With that, are there any specific questions on this budget?
Senator Stevenson.
Yeah, I have a question and a comment. First of all, the 3.184 million coming from the state. We have received that money on a regular basis. Is that the legislation, I believe, passed that ongoing? Is that in perpetuity or until the legislature? We will make enough money eventually, or we'll do well. That will probably be taken back. That's what's happened in other organizations that I've worked with, that as our success will cause a reduction in our gift.
Ariane, if you're okay, maybe I can speak to that just a little bit. And the answer is yes, and that is the purpose of why we were created and why we were given the tools that we were. The legislative code gives us a lot of capabilities in terms of how we can derive our revenue sources. And Senator, to your point, we've even started doing some estimates as to when we think that turn back point, that tipping point will be. It definitely will not be in perpetuity. As we look at the project areas that we're creating and what's going on, I don't want to give a public number because I think people will start to hold us to that. But I do think there's going to be a time in the very near future where we are able to turn state revenue, the state revenue appropriation back to the state of Utah, because our organization, how we've been set up, the good governance that we have, we will be self-sufficient.
If I might, as we put these organizations together, land use authorities in the state, there's 3 really large ones and one that will be very quickly, which would be the ballpark district in Salt Lake City. But as we look at those organizations, it seems like we reach a threshold as we develop. And then we are at a profitability to where we're able to contribute back. And I think, for instance, MIDA this year, I just went through their budget on the first of the week. And MIDA will actually contribute a major portion back into the state, cover the cost of the National Guard. I think that the inland port process, we will contribute back to the state in a very near part in the future, in a very few years, to where we will be covering a major portion of economic development in the state of Utah, as will the Point of the Mountain. So these things they're working incredibly well, and what that does is it frees up other state monies that we're now spending on those things. That allows them to put them into areas where other human needs. So we have, it looks like the federal government may be backing away from some of the things we're using in health and human services. But this allows us to contribute back and not slow the progress of the development of the state. So, same way I just kudos all involved. This is great news. This organization hasn't been around very long already. We're starting to really produce a very good bottom line. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Victoria.
Thank
well.
you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And Senator, as we're thinking about those things in Salt Lake City, where we've had a relatively flat tax year and we're being super cautious, I think there's also the consideration of other things coming up, like there's public safety needs in the Northwest Quadrant where the taxes that were subsumed would have paid for those things. And so I think as the organization matures, the collaboration between the municipalities and the authorities is going to become important, especially for me, since I have 2 that you mentioned in my district, and that's a lot of subsidy put on property owners if we don't get to a place where we set a good precedent here. But I look forward to getting to that next level of maturity with you all in the organization. Ariane, I just wanted to ask a quick question, mostly for my own stress, because I just went through a difficult budget season. I noticed that your sales tax projection is lower, even it's slightly lower. Is there anything you're reading in the tea leaves or anything you're basing that on aside from your own desire to under project on revenues and be pleasantly surprised next year?
No, really, we just took kind of the actuals versus the previously budget and tried to find a number that we felt was a conservative number. So we're not, putting a lot of reliance on that number being higher. But being that we've added a number of project areas, we do anticipate we probably will come in higher than that number. We just wanted to make sure we're being conservative.
Okay, but there's not market forces, there's not things you're
No.
seeing in the area that are causing you abnormal concern.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Part of it too, I guess I should add, is we have had money coming in from Spanish Fork that comes in, and we have an agreement to pass it back to them. And so that way, so I think that's part of the decrease in that number is we've got the Spanish Fork money showing up as a revenue, but then it's also a pass through down below in the expenses. And so we've taken it out entirely because we've worked with the tax commission. It's not going to pass through us anymore. So
Oh, okay.
that's another factor that I apologize I didn't mention before.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Ariane, thank you very much for that report.
Yes, and I just
Yeah.
also wanted to give a big thank you to Amy Chantalisi. She's our financial manager, and she has been phenomenal in helping put this information together. So wanted to publicly say that. Thank you.
Well, it's a great team. Okay, now we'll turn the time to our executive director, Ben Hart, for his report. And as part of that report, Amy Brown Coffin, Chief Risk and Compliance Officer, will update us on the Inland Port sponsored public infrastructure districts. And Danny Stewart, Associate Vice President for Regional Project Area Development, will also update us on activity in the Iron Springs project area.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's a pleasure to be here as CU4. Thank you to Senator Stevens and our board members that are part of our meeting today, and thank you for all those who are joining us live and in person here in this venue as well. It's always worth just 30 seconds of explanation in terms of, because we do have people who are in our meetings that don't know what the Inland Port is. So we are a statewide organization, and I'll go through a little bit about what our charter is, and you'll get a sense for that today. We are in the thick of what our organization actually works on as we go throughout our agenda today. But we have a statewide charter, but that charter is very much locally focused. So how do we interface with our local communities? We're ecstatic to be working with Cedar Fort and Fairfield on a new project area, the Pony Express project area today. As part of our regular meeting, we have some other items that we're going to cover as well, including something that's very important to us, which is our budget. And we appreciate those who are listening in. We often, if you Google the port, you're going to see all sorts of different things. We try, the hard reality is we try and be as transparent as is possible. So I appreciate Ariane taking the time to go through our budget, explain where our funding comes from, and ensure that people know where our money is going to. And so in areas of budget and what we're trying to do, we feel like we are probably one of the more transparent organizations in the state of Utah. And we want to make sure that people know exactly what we're doing, because we have an incredibly important mission. And Senator Stevenson, we don't say thank you enough. He is the visionary behind all of these land use authorities and has helped guide these over the last couple of decades here in the state of Utah. And we're returning to the state of Utah tremendous positive impact. As I look across the spectrum of other governmental organizations, I'm not sure that there's anybody else out there that will have the economic impact on the state of Utah that the Inland Port Authority will. There are organizations that are doing a lot of good, but when we consider today that we're looking at our 14th project area, we're more than 100,000 acres included, and we are in, I think, 15 or 16 counties after today, I think 17 counties even. We are having an impact all across the state of Utah. How you have an impact in Cedar Fort and San Juan County versus Salt Lake City is not an easy thing. There's a balance that we have to have, and we have to be different and flexible as we're working with each one of our communities. And I feel like we're definitely doing that. I do want to say a few thank yous as well as we get into the port. First, Amy Chantilly-Sy has been with us for a couple of months now. And I just wanted to say thank you to her and welcome to our team. She has been crushing it on our finance team. So Amy, we're ecstatic to have you. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. And then we have two new staff members that just joined us this week as part of the Clean Ports program. So Caroline White-Knockleby and also Michelle Bowman. Welcome to our team, and thank you for being part of our Clean Ports program. Mona Smith, our environmental engineer, environmental sustainability director, is doing great things. We're excited for this grant. It is, as far as I know, the largest environmental and sustainability grant the state of Utah has ever received. And we're partnering with the Department of Environmental Quality on that. And so thank you to the great work. And I also see Holly Sweeten from our federal delegation from Representative Moore's office. That's been a great collaboration as we're working to clean the air and have more fuel efficient vehicles here in the state of Utah. So with that, before we jump to a couple of the other things, let me just mention one other administrative item. We have in policy that when we make a non-substantive administrative change to one of our project areas, that we notify the board and we notify the public. We have made some changes to the Box Elder, the Golden Spike project area. It is administrative in nature, and for those who are interested in the exact changes, they can refer to that plan online on our website. But in essence, as we have seen the portions of the project area developed, there have been plat maps that have been recorded, some parcel IDs and legal descriptions have changed. Again, we don't feel that they are substantive in nature. They don't change the overall boundaries, but just internal boundaries. And so we are just notifying the board and the public that we have had that change. Before we go to Amy, and just a little bit of context, Amy has some really important updates just on the status of PIDs. We want to make sure and give the public some level of confidence that we are still staying with our PIDs. It's not just an idea that we sponsor them and that they are completely disconnected. We still do maintain relationships with those PIDs, and Amy will speak to that briefly here in a second, and Danny will talk about Iron Springs. But before we do that, I wanted to just highlight something. We're going to talk a lot about our project areas today. So I wanted to come back just for 2 minutes and talk about the importance of logistics. And I apologize. I do this every once in a while to my staff. I go into Professor Hart mode. I teach at the University of Utah, urban economics, and I go into why these things are important. And for just a second, for 2 minutes, if you'll indulge me, I want to just go back to the underpinnings of why we need an inland port authority here in the state of Utah. Since our last meeting, I've had a chance to tour the transportation network in a couple of major United States cities, in New York City and in Chicago. And as part of those tours, it was impressed upon me again that behind every great city is an even better transportation network. If you do not have the transportation infrastructure to support your population, ultimately you're going to see failings. So where are we seeing failings here in the state of Utah when we compare ourselves to places like Chicago and New York? Well, we're very road dependent. We've got a higher percentage of trucks on our road than any other state in the country. Part of why that is because we have the best road system in the country. Our UDOT, our Department of Transportation, does it better than anybody else. But if we stay dependent on roads for both our cargo and passenger transportation, we are going to fail future generations. We're going to have worse air quality. We're going to have more congestion on our roads. We have to become more multimodal. We saw that in New York City. This is an excellent transportation system that is set up to support that metro area. So we got a chance to tour the Delta cargo facility at the JFK airport. We also toured the Korean Air and the new WFS facility. I am using publicly available photographs because there was some intellectual property involved. But I also want to show, we also had a chance to tour the Kearney Yard, the rail yard that is within eyeshot, just a few miles from the downtown skyline of Manhattan. And I think a lot of people in this metro area don't know about these transportation facilities. They show up at a restaurant, they get fresh ingredients on their food, and they don't care. But it was amazing to see the facilities at JFK where something literally is harvested in Hawaii in the morning. It shows up in New York that evening and it's on somebody's plate the next day. I mean, that's the efficiency of the transportation system in New York City. When we consider what that means for biotechnology, when we consider what that means for aerospace and manufacturing, it's critical that we have transportation networks that support what we're trying to do. And I would argue even that perhaps what we see in the transportation networks in the United States probably all fall a little bit short when we really want to see the close connection between passenger, manufacturing, and transportation. We often look to the international places like Tokyo, like Germany, other places where they've really been able to harness really well the synergy between transportation and manufacturing and industrial uses. As an overview, this is a map that the Federal Department of Transportation put out of all of the different transportation facilities for cargo in the New York City area. You see the Port Authority obviously runs the airport in New Jersey, Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia. And then you've got CSX and another Class 1 railroad that handle some of the rail coming in. But this really is a very sophisticated transportation network. We want to make sure that we're not just continuing to put everything on the road here in the state of Utah. If we do that, again, we're going to create an inefficient system. We have to grow smarter than what we have over the last 100 years. I would say the same thing in Chicago, and I want to give a huge shout out to Bill Wyatt and his team. With everything with Air Cargo, we're working under their leadership. But we had a chance earlier this week, actually, to go with our board chair pro tem to the Chicago area to see their transportation network. We had a chance to see an Air General facility and also an NCA facility as well. When you consider, again, it's serving another major metro area, the infrastructure that exists, it really is incredible. We have to step up our game here in the state of Utah if we're going to support growth along the Wasatch Front for future generations. We have to. It can't all be truck. We have to become more multimodal with air and with rail. So when people say, why do we have an inland port authority here in the state of Utah? Priority number one, economic growth, but also, and which we're going to hear a lot about today, but I want to come back to logistics, but also it's how do we create a better transportation network to help empower future economies and future generations here in the state of Utah. We don't have any current organization like the Inland Port to do that for the state. There also is not really a similar organization across the United States. We're very unique in that regard. That's why we're different. And that's why, again, I believe we're really helping to create a much better future than what we've had when it comes to transportation networks. And we're that body that is coordinated, cohesive, and able to bring everybody together to help figure that out. And so I just want to remind people of that as we get started into today's meeting, particularly because we're going to be very heavy on the economic side and less on the logistics side. But with that, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Amy Brown Coffin and then to Danny for his report.
Thank you, Director Hart. I will be presenting our first annual report on our UIPA sponsored PIDs. PIDs stand for Public Infrastructure Districts. And they're a widely used tool throughout the state of Utah. It's not an isolated concept. In fact, there's over, we did a report on our website, over 300 project areas across Utah utilizes tax increment financing to help fund necessary public infrastructure. These funds are used to develop things like roads, sewer systems, utilities, and water systems. What I'd like to focus on are the 4 UIPA PIDs sponsored, or the UIPA sponsored PIDs, and where we stand and how they're performing, and also look at them from a compliance standpoint as well. So let me go here. I love the screen sharing because sometimes it shares something different, so I'll make this a little bit small. Perfect. So we have these 4 that we put into place. And in order of how they've rolled into, we've got our Crossroads PID that was approved by our board in October of 2021. We'll talk a little bit about the board of trustees composition and how UIP has more insight into these and the revenue sources. The board of trustees composition for the Crossroads is unique from the others because they are comprised of UIPA board and staff we will be meeting after this board meeting to actually work through the Crossroads PID budgets and the required statutory components of that. And there is a bond that has been allocated for this, that at $150 million. Last year, the board approved 2 additional PIDs in our Twilla Valley project area called the TV PID and our VERC and PID as well. We are looking, I wanted to note, there's 3 members that make that TV PID, and we're looking to add an additional non-voting UIPA member, just so we have additional insight into those. There was a tax sharing agreement that was signed last year for the TV PID at 79% of that tax sharing. No parcels have been triggered in this area as of yet. So until we start the parcel triggering, we won't see funds going back into that project area. With BERC, we have 2 of our staff members here at the port on that representation. Recently, and in the last couple of board meetings, the board approved us to execute on a tax sharing agreement at 92.5. That was just signed yesterday. We did the public notice out on that. And then they're going to be adding a self-imposed mill levy as far as revenue sources. BZI, that was just in our last board meeting. So we don't have any revenue sources to report because they are still in their filing, getting the requirements to file the certification with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and that triggers some additional reporting as that gets into motion. I wanted to highlight, this was in our enhanced project area and tax differential policy. We as a port really want to look into ensuring the compliance for any of these PIDs that we sponsor or that we do a tax sharing agreement with them. There are statutory requirements for these PIDs that they have to report and attest or obtain certain things on an annual or quarterly basis. We will be, and I've been reaching out to a lot of these to get things like annual reports or audit reports or required budget postings as well. A lot of these are still in their inception, so we will see more from year to year as they grow and develop, but I wanted to provide those highlights. Additionally, I'm going to move forward to some of the accomplishments that these PIDs have done from a development standpoint and where they're headed. With the Crossroads PID, we recently purchased, the port purchased the North Temple landfill, and we're using those bond financing to the remediation of this North Temple landfill. I highlight the transparency on this. Their Utah State Auditor's Office has a transparency requirement for many of these entities. You can go on and publicly look at these entities and see how they're performing. This includes things like auditor reports, their deposit and investment reports, and transparency reports that they need to do somewhat on either an annual or quarterly basis. Crossroads is unique because it's considered a component unit of the Utah Inland Port Authority. So if you go to look us up, you'll see that's where that's aggregated. The other 3 sponsored are separately reported, and you can also look them up as well. TV PID is still in the starting phases of what they're trying to do from an infrastructure, and they're current on, if you look them up, on their transparency reporting. VERC is in the VERC PID is in the construction of infrastructure, and they've triggered those parcels, as I've mentioned, to do funding back into this construction. And they're also current as well. And then BZI, again, they're still in their infancy. We just approved this, the board last month. So Danny, our AVP over Iron Springs and several of our other project areas, has been working with this PID to make sure the appropriate filings get posted. And you will see this BZI Innovation Park posted shortly on the transparency website. So I'm excited. We're going to be doing this on an annual basis to show how things are performing and what that public benefit is back to the state as well as these municipalities and their adherence to the requirements that they should be doing. I will pause now if there's any questions that the board has.
Any questions online? I don't see any. Thank you, Amy. Danny.
Okay. Good morning, board members. It's great to be here in person today. Give you a brief update about the Iron Springs Inland Port project area. Just a little bit of background here. The Iron Springs project area was the first project area off of the Wasatch Front that was created in the state. The first one outside of the Northwest Quadrant was created in April of 2024 with just under 900 acres. That included 820 acres of the BZI Innovation Park you see on the screen here, and just north of that, the 74-acre Savage rail transload facility. I'd like to look back at this old slide. You can see how clean and pristine all of that beautiful sagebrush is west of Cedar City. That's changing quite a bit. The project area was amended in August of 2024. We amended just under 1,400 acres to the project area that includes the Silver Hills Business Park, the Lakeside Industrial Park, and an area we call the Turf Farm area. So now have a total of 2,287 acres of industrial zone property focused on the Cedar City and Iron County Economic Development Strategy to develop these industrial areas per the county's zoning and general plan. Moving ahead. Two of the most notable accomplishments in the project area since its creation so far are the openings of two railroad transload facilities. We have BZI's RailSync transload facility, which officially opened in June of 23, and Savage opened their Cedar City, Utah transload facility last year. In that time, the RailSync facility has processed nearly 600 rail cars, approximately 2,400 long haul rail or semi trucks that have been taken off of the Utah highways, which that's very significant. Savage hasn't been sharing that data of how many rail cars they've processed yet, but I'm working with them to get that information. It's exciting to see the impact that that's making by being able to bring so many materials into the Cedar City area via rail. Next week, the BZI Innovation Park will host a ribbon cutting marking the completion of infrastructure for phase 1 of the BZI Innovation Park, including roads, water, wastewater, electricity, fiber, natural gas to newly platted lots that are ready for development. This also marks the completion of the company's Nautilus One core and shell, which is the area's first industrial sized spec building, 67,000 square feet of divisible space for future tenants. So that's exciting to see all that come together. You can see that the asphalt, the buildings are taking the place of some of that sagebrush. You can't see how much underground infrastructure is now in place there. The PID that Amy just talked about will be financing this infrastructure, which is now in place. I'm going to jump ahead to a big win that we'll be covering a little more in depth further on in the agenda, but the Hive Plastics company is nearing completion in the Silver Hills Business Park portion of the project area. This is a plastic product manufacturing company, and as I said, we'll talk a little bit more about this coming up here in a few minutes. Just to update you on business recruitment, our team's working very closely with Cedar City Iron County Economic Development and also with BZI Innovation Park and their staff. We currently have 19 active RFIs that we're tracking right now for the Iron Springs project area. That will be up to 21 after today and tomorrow. We've got 2 more RFI responses going in. We've had site visits at the Iron Springs project area. We're excited for some exciting announcements, hopefully in the coming months, about some more projects taking up residence in the project area. Are there any questions from the board at this time? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Danny. That's a really exciting update, and Amy, appreciate that. It's just incredible to see the economic benefits and opportunities that are coming to some of these project areas in rural Utah. Thank you so much to the whole team for their efforts there. With that, Amy, we'll turn it back to you to review some board policies.
Thank you. As we always do in each board meeting, we are committed to transparency and compliance and to the policies that we have the board approve. And several of these policies are up for their annual review. We're starting to hit more and more of a steady state with the Utah Inland Port Authority. And at times that means that we're coming forward and saying, hey, we don't see changes in these policies, but like to bring them to the public and to the board through a 2 meeting cycle, just to have discussion and dialogue. The 2 policies that are up for its annual review are open and public meetings policy, that's BP 01, as well as BP 03, our communications and media policy. The coverage on OPMA is really just the requirements for open and public meetings. There's a statutory component of that. And we've codified in our policy how we handle that from public notice to minutes, to closed sessions, trainings, and so on. A lot of that, I want to highlight that a lot of that work is done by Larry Shepherd, who really is the backbone as the board secretary to make that happen. He's the policy owner. And as we've discussed, I do this with all the policy owners. We looked at the code. We don't see any substantive changes needed at this time. But I will highlight in our next board meeting, I believe, in August, we'll be planning our annual OPMA training that we always do in the public. Secondarily, we have our communications and media policy that's owned by our marketing and communications director, Caitlin Felstead. This really covers our media process, who is the spokesperson from the board, how we handle with advisories and notifications, the use of social media and how we govern that. And then the use of our logo to make sure that we're using these assets and have an open and transparent conversation with the public as well as staff adherence. So no changes for either of these policies as we reviewed them, but I will open this up to the board if there's any questions or comments or changes you'd like to see. Yes.
I have a recommendation. You should go through the Open Meetings Act training, which all of us have to go through annually. But if we set on several boards, give that training over and over. So what I'm going to suggest is that maybe as we go through that, it can be a little dry. So why don't we have somebody, I will have, maybe we can have some contests, maybe give away a thing bar. We've got a lot of that.
No, I hear, and Ben, Director Hart will.
It's not worth it, no.
I've heard
I know what you're gonna say.
Jeopardy games, the AG's office has put together some of our experts, that lead us through that. Coming from in private as a teacher, I would welcome that, but certainly I leave that to the board to decide.
I just want you to know that I'm looking forward to your running the training program. This will only be the 6th time I will take it this year.
So you are an expert now, but thank you for indulging in all these boards to make sure that it's done, because it really is important to the public and how we run and making sure that we're always doing things the right way. But
Remember, music, dancing, fairs.
you know, I love theater, and I would be for that, but again, I would wait for my leader to tell me if that's acceptable or not.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah. We'll bring this up next month and not put it to a vote unless there's changes. I also want to put on, the board is always welcome to reach out to me and let me know if they would like to see any changes or enhancements in between from now until the next board meeting, and the public. And sometimes we do get public comments and things like that, and I do look through each and every one of them. So thank you.
We'll talk.
So, thank you.
Amy, thank you so much for that update and keeping us straight and compliant. Danny, you mentioned high plastics in your presentation. Do you mind giving us a little bit more context or background there, and what business incentives are available within the Iron Springs project site that we should consider?
Yes, I'm happy to bring this item to you today. Hive Plastics coming to the Iron Springs Inland Port is a huge win for Cedar City, for Iron County. This is a plastic manufacturing company, and Cedar City, Iron County has built up a really nice sector, a nice cluster of plastic manufacturing over the last 2 or 3 decades. And we're just thrilled to have this company select Cedar City and the Iron Springs Inland Port to locate here. As mentioned in the Iron Springs project area update, Hive Plastics is nearing completion of construction of their new building in Iron County. This is a 23,000 300 square foot facility in the Silver Hills portion of the project area. This company choosing to locate in Iron County is a very big win for us, as I've mentioned. There's a large capital investment of over $12 million coming into that. And also creation of up to 60 new jobs. This is exactly the kind of project that Cedar City and Iron County look at recruiting and bringing into the community. It brings new jobs that pay higher than average salaries. It helps diversify the economy. Most of all, we really love working with Joe Bruff, the owner of this company. He's just bringing a lot to the community in his personality and his vision for his company and the culture that he's building with Hive Plastics. So this is, like I mentioned, capital investment of $12,686 million, 23,300 square feet. The incentive subcommittee approved clear back in November. It's been a little while since this was brought to the incentive subcommittee, which is now the tax differential committee, proposed incentive that fits Iron Springs project area plan and budget based on the company's fit in the community and the amount of capital investment. The proposal is for Hive Plastics to receive an annual property tax rebate of the company's property tax liability for no more than 25 years, based on completion and development, and subject to early termination should operations cease to continue. The award of this incentive is subject to board approval today and completion of a contract agreement between the board and Hive Plastics. With us today, joining us remotely, is Joe Bruff, the owner of Hive Plastics. Tell us a little bit about the company, what's bringing him to Cedar City and his plans for the future. So Joe, if you're able to connect there, we're excited to hear from you.
Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Danny. I appreciate the long haul. I think we started, if I recall, about 14 months ago on this project. And Danny's been very helpful in influencing our decisions and process. So a little bit about Hive Plastics. First of all, I was located with the business in Box Elder County from 1992 until 2021. I sold that business in 2021. And those who acquired us had a little different plans than where we would have kept heading. And so not reluctantly, but a few years later, I thought, well, maybe I should go back into business again and do some things that will bless lives of others and the community. So we started looking at business itself, and where we typically build are large hollow plastic products, anywhere from 3,000-gallon water tanks. We did a lot of specialty barrels for the medical industry. We do a lot of agricultural things that are large plastic items. So it's different than blow molding and injection molding. We felt like we needed to be on the I-15 corridor because our old customer base was basically between Idaho and California along that corridor, a little bit in Texas, but mostly Utah and Nevada. And so we delved into looking at where we wanted to be next. So we looked at Cedar City and Mesquite, to be honest, and they're the two places we spent most of our time. We like the community of Cedar City, so it gets a big plus for just the environment and the people that are there and the quality of lifestyle that we would like to have for our employees. That was a big plus. Then we started looking at it from an economic standpoint as well. And we were influenced very much by the inland port. If we get back to the size where we were once upon a time, it will be very important for us to have transloaders, bring plastic in bulk rail cars, pulverize it, and take it into our facility, which is obviously now just miles away. And so that's an advantage and a win. And so we looked again at those two places. And Iron Springs gave us an opportunity, which is both good and then bleeding edge, because we are the first development in that subdivision. And so knock on wood, we're finally getting power tomorrow. So that's been a challenge, but it's we're excited about it. And again, we look forward. We became a 100% ESOP company in Brigham City, just to give you an idea. So it was very important for us to give back to employees, and that's our attitude now. we've always found that if they win and we win, it just creates a better environment. So thank you, Danny, and thank you for this opportunity and the incentives that both Inland Port can offer in this process. And we've also looked into the READY programs for employment, since there will be a good chunk of our jobs that'll be well above the county average. So is there any questions? If not, thank you, Danny, and I'll leave it at that.
Joseph, thank you for your investment in Cedar City, in the community. We're excited to see High Plastics really take off. It's great. And Danny, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
please.
Danny, we get accused of giving away Utah's tax base. Can you tell us exactly what this piece of property or close to it was producing prior to the development of bringing it in?
Yes, it was producing some of that very pristine sagebrush that I mentioned earlier, and that's about it. In fact, Senator Stevenson, you recall, we took a very bumpy Jeep ride a year ago as that road was being developed. So you've seen the transition there from the sagebrush to the infrastructure going in. Look forward to you next time you're in Cedar City to see this beautiful facility that's almost complete, and to this great company that's coming in.
As we do these all over the state, we want to remember that the tax base that we start with is almost zero.
Yeah.
It's whatever the ground tax and raising ground is. Not very much. It's literally pennies, probably on the acre, or maybe $1, not much. So my point is that as these projects develop, as they create jobs, as they create the value of the property, the value of the project, that's where the tax base comes from. So when you start from zero, it's pretty easy to use a piece of that as an incentive.
It is. It's really the improvement that they're putting on this ground that was generating a handful of dollars for the county. Now the county, the port, the project area are going to receive this property tax that's coming back now for reinvestment into the community, and use a little bit of that for investment is so valuable. And it's really just one of those things. It's kind of the last little carrot to make Cedar City more appealing than Mesquite in this case. So we appreciate the opportunity to have these incentives. So on the screen before you now is a proposed motion to approve this incentive so that we can move forward, Mr. Bruff.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thanks. And don't go far, Danny. We have some trigger resolutions I know to discuss, and we have Jenna Draper presenting a couple of those to us. Jenna, could you tell us about the resolution for the Skyline Corridor?
Yep. Okay, the first trigger resolution we have up for debate is in the Skyline Corridor. But we did the first presentation on this last month. It meets the UIPA objectives of maximizing long-term economic benefits to the area, the region, and the state, the creation of high-quality jobs, and we can now aggressively pursue world-class businesses that will employ cutting-edge technologies to locate within this area. The community's objectives, we're actually working with 3 different communities on this one. They want to diversify their local economy and create high-quality jobs. They want to enable families to flourish in the area. That's a lot of the messaging here in the rural areas is we want our kids to have the opportunity to stay here and grow up and raise their families in the place where they were born. So these triggers will allow that. In Richfield zone, we have 3 areas that are actually housing and apartment developments that have been recently finished. And then down in the bottom right corner, that's actually an eye doctor. He relocated. He actually bought a dilapidated building and did a lot of renovations. So it's not going to generate a lot of differential in those communities, but Richfield would like to capture that and then be able to put in the infrastructure to support some additional industry and some other opportunities to have shovel-ready ground. Ephraim is triggering a hotel. It was previously bare ground. They should be finished sometime in July. They actually required the developer to put in 100 East, which runs behind the property. The city would like to capture this differential and finish out that road. Because they had the developer built half of it, they would like to use this differential to build the other half. And then Gunnison, Proteor was actually a company that was based in France. And they were looking to locate either in Tucson, Arizona or in Gunnison. They had a facility in Gunnison that they had purchased, and so they have a little bit of a foothold there. We went up against Tucson and they actually ended up moving their entire operation into the Gunnison area. So they've added 68 six-figure jobs there in Gunnison. And it was in an existing building. So once again, it's not going to bring in a lot of differential, but they would like to capture that and continue building out the industrial park there so that we can continue attracting some of these larger businesses.
Did you say 68 six-figure jobs
Yes.
in Gunnison?
They manufacture carbon fiber prosthetics, so it's a lot of the design and the engineering that is done there. They do some of their R&D out in California, and I'm actually trying to talk them into moving out here too. But yeah, they figure they'll, by the time they get their full build out, it'll be 68 jobs and they'll all be in the low six figures.
It really is.
It is, yes. We have air conditioners that work and keep up with things here in Gunnison, so.
Wow, wonderful work.
Yeah, so this resolution would encompass all of the triggering of these parcels. Also have a proposed motion up on the board, so when we get to that point, we'll cover that. Do you guys have any questions?
Any questions for Jenna?
Mr. Chair, I think it's just worth making a point, and I see this more in Jenna's areas and probably and Danny's as well in some of our rural parts, but probably all the project areas. But we're seeing companies that come in and just they're able to tap in the infrastructure. We don't count those in our KPIs all the time. We probably need to start at some point, but they can't come in and establish that footprint, create those jobs unless they've got infrastructure.
Right.
And so it's not always just the companies that we're providing a direct incentive to. We found probably even more that have come into these project areas just because the infrastructure is now available. So there's a lot of things, but Jenna does a great job.
Yeah, we created Skyline Corridor last year and we're already triggering parcels because we were able to kind of make those final connections and close a few of those loops for these companies to go ahead and start going vertical, and they've done it. They've done amazing, and these communities are very excited to use this tool.
I'm aware of another company in Ephraim that is exploding right now within the project site. So really excited about their growth as well. Soap Creek.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing great. They're very excited. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Danny, could you tell us about the other trigger in Central Utah's Agri Park, Nortonville zone?
Yes. Happy to share this with you. This is the first trigger in the Central Utah Agri Park project area, and it's occurring in the smallest of the project area's 5 zones. This is the Nortonville project area, and it's located just north of the I-15 off ramp near Nephi there. When we originally created the project area, there were 27 acres here. If you look at the map, you can see that central portion of that. When we amended the project area last year, we extended that into some other properties there. But the trigger today, we're just looking at that original portion that became part of the project area before the amendment. This is the location of Nortonville Rail Company. This is a railroad transload facility company that's used by CO Buildings out of Ephraim. They have this facility now to unload the massive coils of steel sheet that they use to manufacture their building materials that they use on site. The really cool thing is it's also used for transloading by other companies that have access to the rail here. The map doesn't show it very well, but there's a dashed line that runs right along the edge of that project area. That's the Union Pacific Rail. Nortonville Rail has brought a spur off of that into their building and beyond that so that they can transload indoors and outdoors. So as I've mentioned, they've unloaded their own steel, but they've also unloaded massive power transformers for the Current Creek transformer project that's being built west of Mona. And to take those things off the road, to move those by truck would have required road closures or most closures, moving things at 2 and 3 in the morning when there's not very much traffic at very low speeds, and to have access to the rail has been a tremendous thing. So what we're looking at doing is triggering this original 27 acres, where CO Buildings has built this 70,000 square foot facility. Triggering this first parcel aligns with the project's area's plan and budget by enabling future growth for CO Buildings on this parcel, and also opening up new transloading opportunities for the region. Juab County adopted a resolution to trigger this parcel just over a month ago on their May 19th meeting. And they are excited to begin triggering parcels in the agri park. Any questions on this one?
No, I don't see any online. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate that. Jenna, you also have our next presentation. We're looking at a tax sharing agreement for public infrastructure in Ephraim, and have a guest from the PID.
Yeah, I'm gonna introduce the Camino Verde group. They are doing a very large master plan community there in Ephraim City called Ephraim Crossing. They currently are looking to create the PID and put in a lot of the arterial road infrastructure and some other infrastructure. So manufacturing is actually adjacent to this, so that this infrastructure will kind of support that project as well. I'll turn the time over to Lisa.
And Jenna, just while they're coming up, if I can give a thumbnail sketch of context on this, and Senator Stevenson, if I speak out of turn, please correct me. But this one was brought before our tax differential committee just last week for review. Ultimately, the tax differential committee supported the connecting and providing the tax differential for this project. One of the dynamics was that they supported it at 80%. There had been a conversation that perhaps the port could go as high as 90%, depending upon the presentation. So right now, the resolution before the board says 80% on it, but the tax differential committee supported it coming to the board, and depending upon the presentation and any discussion that happens here, that the full board could go up to as much as 90%. And so I just want to be aware that resolution, and Jerry, feel free to correct me on any of that. But I think that was the plan for this particular item.
Thank you.
That's fair.
Thank you, and I'm prepared to share a presentation. Let's see. You can see that.
Perfect. We can see that.
You can see that here. So, thank you very much. My name is Mike Ballard. I'm the CEO of the Camino Verde Group. And about 6 years ago, we started purchasing land in Ephraim. I've got my partner, Jeff Knowlton here, as well as my other partner, Joe Gallagher here. And we've been excited. The city of Ephraim has been very supportive of what we're doing. Our company owns properties in 7 states across the country. And we do a lot of multifamily. And what brought me to Ephraim was a Colby's Kettle Corn, a company that makes snacks and distributes them all over the country. And we did Joe and I participated in doing a new market tax credit transaction for them. And that's what interested us in Ephraim. And everybody kept saying there's no housing in Ephraim. There's so much opportunity here. We were looking to do a project potentially that overlaid opportunity zones with new market tax credit zones. And we tried St. George and Cedar, and the land costs were too high. We went to Ephraim, and we like college towns. And so we went to Ephraim, and the cost for land was great. So in our communication with the city, we started purchasing land. We started working with them on roads. And about 2 years ago, the city manager talked to us a little, said, by the way, I'm including your project in our development. We have now since acquired over 300 acres in Ephraim. Or we've acquired 288 with the option to buy about another 35 more. And turns out the largest portion of their Ephraim zone is pretty much our entire development. And we're excited, and that shows the support the city has for what we're doing. In fact, they sold us 86 acres of their development. We, again, that's the development. The mayor basically has been super supportive and, as well as the Snow College. And the mayor has told us, please help us keep our greatest asset, our youth. And, you know, we keep seeing them graduate from college and then they move, you know, Snow created 2 4-year programs, one of which is software engineering. And then they graduate and then all the jobs are in Utah County, so they create more congestion there when Ephraim wants to keep them. And so they said, do things that'll make it more attractive to keep them. And so the mayor said, provide amenities like a grocery store, the hospital, that type of thing, and more attainable workforce housing. So in our acquisition, we have purchased over 288 acres. Because of our design, the mayor said Intermountain Health was looking at purchasing land in Ephraim for more than 5 years. And until they saw our master plan, they hadn't committed to anything. And when they saw our master plan, we closed that transaction pretty fast. And so in November of 2022, they purchased 39 acres in our development. Soap Creek bought on the far west side of our development from land that we were going to buy from the city, but when there was an opportunity for the city to sell them direct, they did that. And so they purchased 21 acres, and like you said, they're growing like a weed. And so that's pretty exciting. And so they're creating probably over 100 jobs on the far west portion of our development. Again, you know, I think our goals and UIPA's goals and the city's goals all meld really well. And part of what it makes attractive to bring employers to Ephraim is the fact that we master planned it so that we have the services, including this 40-acre retail park, this kind of town center we're trying to build within there that includes parks and shared amenities and those types of things to create a nice environment that would be attractive to major employers to pay their people well. Like I mentioned, Intermountain Health purchased land, and Soap Creek, we talked about them. UDOT working with us and the city is putting in infrastructure for part of it that made it attractive for Intermountain Health to move here. We were already working on this, but part of the goal of this particular road was to connect it all the way to the industrial park on the west side of town, on the west side of our project. And that was partially city owned and partially owned by us. And because of the cost increases, what they budgeted for was only able to build about a quarter of what they planned, because they wanted to go from the east side of town all the way to 800 West. And now they're just going from Highway 89 to 400 West and only doing it with a half road, not a full road. And so the transportation costs, the road costs are becoming discouraging to some folks, and especially to the city that had hoped that this was going to be a full width road that would go 10 blocks, and it's only going 4 blocks only with a half road. To the south of our property is the Ephraim Airport. Part of the airport overlay district goes through our property, and so industrial is a perfect use for that land. Snow College has told us they need more housing for faculty. The former president, Brad Cook, used to call me regularly saying, I made 22 offers that were accepted and I lost about half of them because they couldn't find quality housing. And so we've been trying to work with him, and he came to the grand opening of the first residential development. And so we have 600,000 square feet of additional industrial land on the west side of our development. Some of it is large space where we've been in discussions with 2 different food manufacturers or food related manufacturers, one talking about cold storage, one related to manufacturing and cooking, that are looking at building more than 200,000 square foot buildings themselves. And what's been slowing them down is the infrastructure costs. We also plan some industrial incubator space. We have 8 buildings planned on 6.4 acres for a total of 74,000 square feet. And as soon as we can get the road there, we'll start on building the speculative space. We retained Ensign Engineering out of Sandy to help us with estimates of costs, to do everything that we think we need to do to accomplish the goals that we're trying to do. It's going to be 15 million just for the road costs, not counting the overhead and the underwriting costs of any bonds that would come in. And so our underwriter basically said our bond could probably be no more than 10 million. It would allow you to have proceeds of no more than 7 million. So we'll probably accomplish less than half of our goal. And so our request to you, we ask that you please consider 90% or more for the allocation. And Jeff, anything else that I should add, or Jeff?
No, I think just one point is, we appreciate how collaborative all the organizations have been, and I think the point that was made that, you know, each city is a little bit different, and we worked closely with the city of Ephraim and had a lot of discussions on what rate they would support and what rate they desire. And they've been pretty adamant that they want the infrastructure put in, and they support a 90% rate. So the city manager has kind of added that in email to us, that that's what she's supportive of, because obviously just the way the bond math works is that if, you know, less proceeds are available to repay loans, then less bonds are sold and kind of less money is available for roads. So I think we're all in favor of infrastructure to promote economic development, and I think the higher number supports that. So that's why we would respectfully ask for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Let me make a comment while you're there. I was kind of the stick in the mud, if you will, as we went through the infrastructure committee meeting. But after listening to your presentation, I think that the extra incentive is probably very well in line. I work with the university system a lot with the Senate, with the legislature. And I think that a good job base in that area would be amazing for that institution. I also believe that it's an area of the state that would, you know, kind of gets bypassed on the I-15 corridor sometimes. And so you've done a good job in selling it. Okay, I think with that extra incentive, it's probably a good place for some money. I think it's good for the area. And I really believe that it'll aid in the increase of population as far as the student body at the university. Nothing better for an area really than a good university or a university experience in these areas. And we have a lot of students in the state that like the smaller experience to begin with. So I think you're right on with what you're doing, and we'll move forward on that with the incentive that we talked about. Okay.
Well, just the motion at the time of adoption.
Okay, make that adjustment. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions, Victoria, Bill, online? Or comments? No. Thank you, very exciting. Thanks for your investment in the area. It's, Ephraim is an important college community, and this is very exciting.
We agree. We've been excited to be there. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's see, Stephen Smith is next, the Associate Vice President with responsibility over the Northwest Quadrant. You have a resolution to the creation of the public infrastructure district there. We had your first presentation a month ago. If you want to give us the highlights.
Yeah, absolutely, recognizing that we're, you know, running a little short on time. I'll be quick, but hopefully detailed about this. And as we're back for the long-awaited sequel for this public infrastructure district proposal in the Northwest Quadrant, I want to correct that the name of the public infrastructure district will be the NWQ Public Infrastructure District. That's what they've landed on. We think it's an improvement from the XR Quadrant, even though that's still the entity that is requesting this. So just a bit of clarification on that. Just the high level overall, this will cover about 229 acres. The north part of the Northwest Quadrant, it's kind of the area known as the quad up there. They're looking for that support through mill levy, about three mills to support about $22 million of infrastructure development. This gives you kind of the highlight of the area. As you can see, those three buildings up kind of near the top, that's where we're talking about. And this is the plat map of the proposal. Here request highlights pretty typical infrastructure needs that they're asking for support through this. Again, no requested tax differential. They're just looking for the mill levy to help support the bonding and the repayment of that. They're looking to start this as soon as possible. They have at this point provided all the documentation that's requested, the governing document. We just got some disclosures as well for the governing board for this. But we feel very strongly about supporting this. This is a great development in the Northwest Quadrant. We'd like to see that get built out in the way it needs to be. And so we are asking for the board to support that. Any questions or comments? I believe we do have people online as well if we need them, but I'm happy to answer any questions we have.
Any questions? I don't see any.
All right. Thank you
Very much. Okay, Jenna will provide the presentation to us on the Pony Express project area plan and budget. Turn the time to you.
We are Rocket, the reason why we're in Cedar Point.
That's right.
Perfect. Because we're a little bit short on time and this is the second presentation, I'm gonna kind of shorten this up a little bit. I've thrown a lot of project areas at you guys since starting to work here, if you hadn't noticed. But I feel like it's very important in these more rural areas, especially one that's expecting the explosive growth that Cedar Forest Fairfield is, that they have an ally, that they have a partner who's willing to come in and help them achieve their goals and make sure that they maintain their integrity and their history, but they're not being overtaken or overwhelmed with the development and the growth and the potential coming in. So this project area hits all of the statutory requirements. We've effectuated public purpose, there's public benefit, all of that, but really it means a lot to these communities to have someone help them and be a supporting role, but really listen to their concerns, listen to their objectives, and support them in their goals and what they have defined that they would like their communities to look like. Not somebody that comes in and says, this is what you need to do, this is where you need to go, this is what needs to happen. They really want somebody who's going to act more of a partner, and I believe that UIPA has proven themselves to be that partner, which is why, you know, I'm bringing them into every single corner of the state that I can before somebody cuts me off. I do need to highlight Fairfield's initial presentation was a much smaller area. They had passed some resolutions that we had inadvertently missed during the first presentation, so their portion of the project area is significantly larger. The first presentation just included that area down on the bottom where the airport is. They had requested some additional properties, so those have been included with this second presentation. As mentioned before, there are about 150 people and Fairfield's about 400 or so. And they're anticipating just absolute explosive growth coming down from the Wasatch Front. I'll turn some time over to Mayor White.
Yeah, we're facing a substantial amount of growth. I mean, we have everything coming from Eagle Mountain and all that. And it's coming to us. Our little town is gonna change significantly, but I think it would be really good to have this project area to help create jobs, and get a lot of those businesses here, get some tax revenue and that kind of thing. And I think the residents are very on board to see this happen and see something like this come into the community and help create some good growth and things, so, yeah.
Thank you. Industries of focus, they want to light to medium manufacturing, small scale advanced manufacturing, ag technology, renewable energy, and sustainable agriculture processing. Really, they're interested in things that are going to support and be a benefit to the area, not jobs that are going to come in and just take advantage of cheaper land before it really explodes. Goals and objectives. The Pony Express project area promotes following goals and objectives. This is where we get to alphabet soup. We have objectives A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, Q, R, and S of the statutory requirements for project area. So we have them all. with the exception of a couple that were focused in the northwest quadrant. And staff recommends a resolution creating the Pony Express project area. Are there any questions from the board?
I don't see any.
Perfect, thanks.
Jenna, thank you so much. And Mayor Cook, really excited for, I got the chance to speak with Mayor Cook ahead of this meeting, just before we started. And just to see his excitement and to hear about the desire to keep families here as opposed to exporting them, and the opportunities that this opens up for Cedar Fort communities is really exciting. Appreciate your leadership here, Jenna, for all your work on it. Okay, well, we'll now open the general public comment portion of the meeting. And since this meeting is a budget hearing, we'd like to hear first any comments related to the budget. Then we'll open it up for other general comments.
I don't think we have any comments in the room. We had someone that turned in a card, but they didn't want to make any comments, so I think we're all online.
Okay. You do have comments on
one comment on deceived.
Yeah, great. The floor is yours.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
So just a couple things on the budget. One, I'm really concerned about what's happening with the Salt Lake City portion of tax differential. I know that the city is interested in ameliorating some of the harm that's happening to the west side communities because of increased truck traffic, and we're just not getting a response from you all that you're willing to fund those kinds of things. And then what Council Member Petros spoke to in terms of enforcement in the Northwest Quadrant itself, that's also an issue. And then I also want to say, just overall, there's a cost to your fast tracking and incentivizing this industrial development. And that is that in many of the areas that you're working in now, there are serious issues with water resources. For example, in the Cedar Valley in Iron County, they are out of water, and in fact came to the legislature during this last session and asked for money to help with a water reuse pipeline, which was not funded. But they cited the inland port pressure, development pressure, as a reason why they needed more water resources. And I just want to suggest to you all as policymakers that that may have, we may be creating a bigger problem by allowing this kind of development to happen without an analysis of the hydrology of the community. So that's what I want to leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now, are there any other comments related to the budget? Okay, so we'll open it up to any other comments. Bettina Cameron, please.
Hi, Bettina Cameron. I'm actually a resident of Eagle Mountain, but I'm also a co-founder of the Eagle Mountain Nature Wildlife Alliance. And I always like to take something that some people may perceive as bad, and growth is going to happen, but there's also sometimes opportunities. And I thought this project might highlight an opportunity that I hope that the board and that the state will also consider. Right now, when it comes to like environmental stuff, it has to be within or adjacent. Here in Eagle Mountain, the Cedar Valley area, there's what's called the Eagle Mountain migration corridor, and that's not just in Eagle Mountain. That is here in Fairfield, Cedar Fort, Eagle Mountain and stuff. And it's also a priority item for Camp Williams, our military economic development. This corridor has changed the whole outlook of Eagle Mountain, where their branding is based off of outdoor recreation. This 25% that a municipality gets to, allocate towards like infrastructure. I would love to propose that when there is a state or federally recognized project, that municipality and or the board, inlet power board and maybe actually allocate some of that money for resources, or like, in this case, the migration corridor, or that also helps support defense. And I know there has to be some limits, but that's where I'm suggesting, state and federal. And that way, those funds don't have to be exactly inside or adjacent. In this case, probably not most opportunity, unless you get over to the wetlands. But some of those funds can be over to preserve this migration corridor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With two.
Comment to that, just a second.
Yep.
Camp Williams falls under the, mostly another land use authority called MIDA. And MIDA and the Inland Port, we coordinate very closely together. MIDA has moved to a situation where they're actually generating a lot of revenue, and we are dedicating a lot of that to the National Guard to help with a lot of the type of projects that you're talking about. I think that as this matures a little more, and through both of these agencies, you'll see some real positive things come out of it.
Three more comments, it looks like online. Who do we want to start with? Heather? Floor is yours.
Thanks. This is Heather Dove speaking. I'd like to register my opposition to the creation of the Pony Express Inland Port Project area. This part of Utah County, west of Utah Lake, has already experienced tremendous growth. The roads, the air, the water, the soundscapes, they're all already overburdened. These resources cannot sustain the scale of industrial and residential development that's being planned with this port. Additionally, I'm opposed to the degradation and destruction of the wetland areas nearby. We've already lost the vast majority of our wetlands in this state, and we can't afford to have any further losses. Cedar Fort and Fairfield city leaders are rushing into this project without fully understanding what they're giving up, which is the peace and quiet and the natural beauty of the desert landscapes and the wildlife they support in this region. I think this type of there was some talk at one point about possibly installing a solar farm in this area. And I think this type of low water development that doesn't stimulate further population growth and urban sprawl is far superior to industrial development and residential growth that's planned with this port. Cedar Fort and Fairfield city leaders are being driven by FOMO. That's the fear of missing out. They've all seen other communities rush to secure a project in their area. I predict that most of these communities will eventually regret their decision to enter such projects. I urge Cedar Fort and Fairfield to revisit this pursuit and choose instead to keep the beautiful landscape and quiet lifestyle and not overtax the natural resources. Do not allow urban sprawl to pollute your corner of this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see next.
Terry Durfee.
Terry Durfee.
Yes, I want to speak about not approving the Pony Express area because, again, as people have mentioned, there are many water resource issues in that area, especially with all of the growth that they've already experienced. And even though, as Heather mentioned, even though it's not, it doesn't seem like it's close to a large body of water, there are wetlands areas in that location. And as Bettina mentioned, that there is a large wildlife corridor in that area. And I also want to mention that in previous conversations where there's been kind of a disparaging comment about sagebrush, I don't think that that's a bad thing to have an area of sagebrush. And by creating additional port areas, you are creating competition for yourselves against the businesses that you're trying to bring in. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Joel, we are ready for you. Joan, I'm sorry. Joan.
Hi, I'm Joan Gregory from Salt Lake City. I second the comments that have been made expressing concerns regarding the budget and the proposed Pony Express project area. I support our wetlands because they support us, our lungs, our hearts, our health, our ecosystems, our very existence. My comment is on process, and I want to say thank you to Jonathan and to Senator Stevenson for making space for virtual public comment in this meeting and in the meetings they have been chairing. Public comment is essential. I want to encourage you both to encourage Chair Abby Osborne to do the same and follow your lead in making it possible for people all over Utah to comment virtually on what is presented at these UIPA board meetings. When the meetings are held in the Utah State Capitol, people in Cedar Fort, Fairfield, San Juan County, Weber County, Tooele, and throughout our entire state should be given the opportunity to address the board. And when the meetings are held in counties throughout the state, those of us in the rest of the state should be granted the same commenting opportunity. Yes, there is written comment, a written comment option. That is great, but verbal virtual comment includes inflection, conveys emphasis, and perhaps even opens the door for empathy and greater understanding. Choose all of the above. Be the example of a Utah independent governmental quasi-agency entity that offers all of the commenting options in person, written, and virtual. To me, it seems doable, feasible, equitable, and a positive step toward openness and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two more in person. Fairfield Mayor Holly McKinney. Welcome.
Okay, thank you for letting me speak to you. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you guys yet, but I do want to say thank you for how we have come this far so far. Fairfield is a small town and we are obviously feeling the impacts from the surrounding communities. I believe that our roads are a mess. And half of the problem is that we don't have the jobs out west to get to where, to make it feasible for people to live here. It's not helping the housing crisis. It's not helping anything. Our roads are just getting worse. You guys have allowed me to give that opportunity to get roads out there and to get businesses out there so people can turn the other way and stay out here for a job. You guys have been very good to work with. I did have the opportunity to come up to the Capitol. Unfortunately, the governor was actually having a housing summit at the exact same time, so I couldn't come. As far as the solar fields going into Fairfield, they're not coming into Fairfield, they're going into Utah County, and they are against my will because I do believe they cover a vast majority of our land, but Utah County permitted them. We do have a lot of businesses that want to come to Fairfield, and my problem was I could not get the infrastructure to these businesses without totally breaking us. We are a small town. I don't have the staff to support all of this. So I appreciate when I get the support from you guys, and I feel like it was very needed. Holly Sweden had come to me and she could see the vast amount of problems that I have around town and that we are such a small town. For example, I have one industrial development that would probably take the rest of the quantity of water rights that I have in our water tank by hooking up. So then it would have left me as the town to say, what can we do to fix this problem? All that cost would have went back onto the residents to either build a new water line or a new water tank. So it's allowed us to drill a well to address the water system, the water deficiency that we have in this valley. And then I also plan on putting in roads to help with the development that's going on out here, which would include another well to get into our water source that we do have that has not been tapped into. I know there's a shortage, but we need to work it efficiently. And if we can run the plan, that will help us. And you guys are allowing us to plan for our community, not let a developer come in and tell us what we're going to do. So I appreciate it. I hope you do consider us and know that I plan on being a partner with you guys. I don't look at you as a detriment, and I hope that you will be glad that you took Fairfield and Cedar Fort on, because I think it will work out good in the end, and I think that it's the best thing for this valley. And I think it's a way forward to solve a lot of the problems that we're having. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And the last comment to Casey Saxton.
Thank you, board members. My name is Casey Saxton. I serve as district director for Congressman Burgess Owens here in Utah. And I just wanted to express his support for the Pony Express project area. You've heard from both of our mayors, Cedar Fort Mayor Whitefoot and Fairfield Mayor Holly McKinney. You couldn't ask for better local leadership. And in small towns like this, we know that those come with challenges. And I think we've seen here, we've got local leadership who are looking for future opportunities to improve their communities rather than allow things external to their communities to happen around them to take part of their future in their own hands. So I just wanted to encourage, on behalf of Congressman Owens, the board's consideration of this project area, and encourage you to approve it.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for their comments. That concludes the comment portion of the meeting. And we'll move into taking board action. Our first action item is the consideration of the Authority Infrastructure Bank loan in West Weaver that Ariane presented. Larry, will you display the proposed motion, please?
And I can read that, Mr. Chair. The Utah Inland Port Authority Board approves an infrastructure loan from the Inland Port Authority Revolving Loan Fund of $5 million to PCC Land LLC, with the terms of the loan beginning 3 years at 3.2% interest rate, including, and I'm going to add this from the AIB committee, including capitalized interest payable at the end of this 3-year term.
I would be for approval of that motion. We have had opportunity to look at these, for, a couple of meetings, and it seems like this is a good place for us to live. 3 years, we understand that it's more than normal interest, but 3 years is not the excessive time that happening. I would move for approval.
Thank you for that motion. And I just want to note also that Chair Osborne has joined us online. Do we have a second to Chair's motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Is there any other discussion on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. We're now looking to adopt resolution 2025-39, approving the budget. Larry, will you please read the resolution title for the record?
Yes, this is resolution number 2025-39, adopting fiscal year 2025 amended and fiscal year 2026 tentative budgets.
Thank you. Will a board member make a motion to adopt this resolution, please?
I'll make the motion, Jerry.
We'll take turns.
Okay.
I would second that.
Wonderful. All in favor of the motion to adopt the resolution, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Next is a proposed incentive for Hive Plastics. Larry, will you please? It's up. Okay, great. Let's see. Do we want to read that, or
I'll go ahead and read it. The Utah Inland Port Authority Board approves an annual project area incentive property tax differential rebate equivalent to 10% of the assessed property tax post completion of the development. This rebate will be provided yearly for no more than 25 years, provided continue operation within the project area during that time. Incentive approval is subject to the following: completion of the contract agreement.
okay?
Listen to discussion, I would move for approval.
All right, we have a motion by Senator Stevenson.
I'll
I'm
second.
happy to. Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any, that's unanimous. That motion passes. We're now looking to adopt resolution 2025-32. This is the trigger resolution in the Skyline Corridor project area. Larry, will you please read that resolution title?
Yes, as you stated, this is resolution 2025-32, trigger resolution for the Skyline Corridor project area.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to
I'll make that
adopt?
motion.
Thank you, Abby.
And I would move second.
Thank you, Senator. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that is unanimous. It passes. Thank you. And now the other trigger resolution is for the Nortonville zone in the Central Utah Agri Park project area. Larry, will you please read that one?
Yes, resolution number 2025-35, trigger resolution for Central Utah Agri Park project area in Nortonville zone.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt that resolution?
I would move.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. That is unanimous. It passes. The next resolution is 2025-38 for the tax sharing agreement with the crossing PID. Larry, will you please read that resolution title?
Yes, resolution number 2025-38, crossing PID number 1 and number 2, interlocal tax sharing agreement.
Thank you.
Larry, can we note that that resolution currently says 80 and this resolution from the board amends that 80 to 90%?
And is there any further discussion on that? Chair Osborne, I know you joined a little later.
Yep, no, I'm good. I read the materials.
Okay.
I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
With the increased tax incentive.
Thank you, Senator.
Happy to second.
Okay, great. Chair Osborne seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Let's see here. Okay, now we have a resolution 2536, right? Yes, okay, 2536, for the creation of the XR Quadrant Development PID. Will you please read that resolution?
Yes, now known as the NWQ PID, with that name change that we heard about.
And Larry, just as a course of action for the board meeting, we are going to change the name of this. I know what's referenced on the board agenda, so we have to, from board approval in a public meeting, change the title. So Larry is going to read that with the amended title. But I do want to note the change, so it will then be up to the board to adopt that amended version.
Okay, resolution 2025-36, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of the Utah Inland Port Authority, UIPA, providing for the creation of the NWQ Public Infrastructure District, known as the District, as an independent body, corporate and politic, authorizing and approving a governing document, an interlocal agreement, and a notice of boundary action, delegating to certain officers of UIPA the authority to execute and approve the final terms and provisions of the governing document, the interlocal agreement, the notice of boundary action, and any other documents related thereto, authorizing the district to provide services relating to the financing and construction of public infrastructure within the district area, appointing a board of trustees for the district, authorizing other documents in connection therewith and related matters.
Thank you, Larry. Do we have a motion to, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the creation of this district or development PID?
I would make that motion. These
I'll
things are important. Go ahead.
No, you.
These are very important, the things that we go through here. I just, sometimes it seems like we're going to move through a sequence of things down, but we have had opportunity to review, look at these very closely, so. Thank you. And so that is a motion.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'm happy to second that.
Wonderful. Thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 That motion passes. Thank you. And I believe our last,
We'll have two more. We'll do the minutes.
oh, that's right. We still have the minutes to do. Next is resolution 2025-37, approving the Pony Express project area plan and budget. Larry, will you please read that?
Yes, resolution 2025-37, a resolution of the Utah Inland Port Authority Board adopting the Pony Express Inland Port Project Area Plan.
Thank you. Will someone make a motion to adopt this resolution 2025-37?
Happy to do that.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Wonderful. All in favor of adopting this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, that passes unanimously. Next, we need to, I know, approve minutes.
I'll go ahead and read the motion. We just need a first and a second for this motion, approval of the minutes from the May 29th board meeting.
And I'll make that motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second? Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes from our last board meeting, say aye.
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 Thank you very much. That passes. And that was the last one.
That was it.
Okay.
You did well, Mr. Chair.
So the last motion would be to adjourn this meeting.
But I make a
Oh, please do, yeah.
Hold to be heard in the audience. This inland port process, we looked at this extensively as we go to 2017 as to how this would develop and what it would mean to the state of Utah. Those that think that it's not good planning to move forward in this type, I think you are a little forward. The mayors that have spoke here are absolutely right in what goes on. As the growth is going to come, it's going to come to this area, and the more help and assistance you can get in causing that to take place in an early way, it's important. I served as a mayor of a community that was in a rapid growth situation, clear back in the 90s. And we did planning and we moved the community forward in a very orderly way. And we planned for our water and we've taken care of things, and the growth has come. And it's created a lot of really good neighbors in what we've done. But if you let it go haphazardly, it will not be a positive for anyone in the area. And it won't be positive for the state of Utah. We just allow things to kind of explode and take place. The inland port has the opportunity to kind of help with those processes. I appreciate the mayor's comments when she said she didn't have the staff. And you won't have until your community grows to where you can afford the staff. And sometimes we have to figure out whether we're dragging the dog by the tail or we've got a leash. And we certainly don't want to get to where we're dragging it by the tail. I've been very pleased to be involved in this process since its inception. I've had the opportunity to run most of the legislation that we've ran in the inland port process. But these are very important, and I think we'll look back and we're going to say, is it perfect? Probably not. But did it help? The answer to that would be yes, absolutely it has. But perfection is sometimes in the eye of the beholder. We're not going to get it right for everyone, but we sure want to get it right, and we don't want to foul it up in that process. So I had someone that told me once, and as I love this, I don't want to offend any cat over here, but they said, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and there are. I think this probably goes back to when that was acceptable behavior. But you don't want to tear holes in the hide when you skin it. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to do this in the least offensive way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Well said. And thank you to Director Hart, his team, all those that presented today, all of you for being here today. We appreciate.
We've got a mayor back here that had her hand up. And,
oh.
I always give
Absolutely.
previous two mayors.
I wish you guys would consider changing your name. Honestly, like, when I was vetting you out, I talked to Payson's mayor and they're like, they come with one thing of baggage. And I said, what? Their name. And I feel it, you know, everybody thinks, oh, Fairfield's bringing a port. I'm not bringing a port. I'm trying to control the growth. But the backlash that we get from being mayors and you guys being an inland port is horrific because everybody's like, we don't need any more traffic out here. That's not what you guys are doing. And I honestly mean that. I wish you would consider changing your name. It would make life a lot easier for us on the other side that are trying to do business with you. Because I think you're helpful. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us.
Mayor, you're right on. We hear that a lot.
I wish you would consider it. You know, it's gotta be a really good reason you don't, because it would make life a lot easier.
Well, I want you to know that in over 40 years of public service, I've had a lot of people in public meetings wanting to change my name. You'd be surprised at some of the things that they wanted to change it.
So are you telling me there's no way?
There's always a change.
I just think you guys should really consider it. I think it would make things a lot easier for us on the other side. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll welcome a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Mr. Chair, before we go to that, just quickly to note, we will do the PID meeting that has been advertised right now, following the adjournment of this meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Right? Is that all? Okay, we're adjourned.